Aloha and good afternoon. My name is Jürgen Steinmetz, joining you from the Breaking News Show in Honolulu, Hawaii. And today is Wednesday, September 7th. And I know you haven't seen us for a little bit. And these was due not only to technical challenges, but also I was traveling. I just got back from Malta last night. What a beautiful place to get stranded. Some of you may have seen my article. I ended up staying in Malta 3 more days because thanks to Lufthansa canceling my flight to Frankfurt, I needed to connect to San Francisco and back to Honolulu. But it was a good thing. I enjoyed my stay. It's a beautiful island, a lot of history, a little bit overcrowded, I have to say, from tourism, but I guess that's what it is, and it's also a good sign for the economy. With me, of course, as always, is Dr. Peter Tarlow, our co-host. He's joining us from College Station, Texas. And we also have a guest today, a very interesting person. He is a professor at the University of Wales, and he is into harmony. So he will explain this a little bit later. And Peter, we always start with the weather. And when I look outside here, it's a beautiful sunny day. I don't see a cloud in the sky. Same as I had for the last 2 weeks in Europe. So I think the whole world is turning into a beautiful place when it comes to weather. How's everything in Texas?
Well, today again is a beautiful day in Texas. It's not supposed to be. Um, Actually, we had a major drought from a good part of the summer, and then it was almost as God said, "Okay, you guys want rain? I'm going to give you rain." So it rained for every day for about 8 or 9 days, and it was supposed to rain today, but instead the weather is beautiful. So it's warm. It's in the 90s, or it's in about 35 degrees Celsius if you use that scale. But it's a really nice day, and I'm hoping that the weather holds for a few more days. It's I'm having a birthday party for my wife over the weekend, and I'm praying that we don't get rain till maybe Monday.
I'm
So
going to watch out for you, Peter. I'm going to be flying over, and actually, I'm going to be landing and changing planes in Houston on Friday night or Saturday morning on my way to the Cayman Island, and I'll be attending. And you're gonna hear a lot about the Caribbean Tourism Organization conference in the Cayman Island, taking place next week. So I'm looking forward to that. I've never been to the Cayman Islands. I don't have any offshore money either, so it's going to be
it's a nice place. I trained the police for the Cayman Islands, and I set up their tourism security. As long as you don't have a major tsunami, they're good to go. It's a very lovely place. Like the British, they drive backwards, but that's okay. But it's a very nice place. So I think you're going to enjoy it.
And Peter, since you're in the middle of everything, I've been sleeping. Give us an update. What's going on in the world of tourism, and then we can
Yeah,
talk to people.
yeah. Well, I think the good news, and let's start with the good news, is that tourism this summer is really booming. Almost every place in the world, from the Middle East to Europe to Latin America to Asia, wherever you go, hotels are full, airlines are full. That's really the good news. And I think people are really expressing the need to travel after 2 or 3 years of being cooped up. The negative is that there are clouds on the horizon, and we have to see how this is going to do. There are problems of inflation. The amount of people working, they use the figure often unemployment, but that's really not a very sophisticated number. What you want to know is what is the number of people out of the percentage that are gainfully employed. And those numbers are incredibly low around the world, and that's a problem. Middle income family disposable income is lower, and that's the problem. Uh, and what we don't know is what other horizons may take place. We're seeing some real issues about the question of Greece and the Greek islands, which are Greece's number one tourism area, being threatened by Turkey. And that could be an issue between two NATO countries. And that's a real problem. There's the issue, and maybe our guest will speak to a little bit. I was on the phone yesterday with the British police. There's a very high probability. I'm not saying it's going to happen, and they may be able to come up with a system um, where England and other countries may have to close large percentages of their restaurants this winter because the cost of electricity or fuel has gone up so high that you can't afford to pay your bills. And so that's a real issue. As you know, California today is facing a grid problem. They're having a heat wave, and they told everybody to try to use electric cars, but there's no electricity to fill the cars. So now people are being told not they can't drive before 9 o'clock in the evening, which means people can't get to work, and so that's creating some sort of an issue. So these are maybe transitional problems. They might be problems that in a few years we'll figure out. But right now, they are threats to the tourism industry because if people are afraid to fly, if prices continue to go up, then disposable income will go down. And tourism is based on the whole concept of disposable income. So the good news is it's very busy right now. The bad news is there are clouds on the horizon, and hopefully those clouds will dissipate and we won't have to actually have the thunder that will come from them. So that's kind of a wrap up of where the world is in tourism in the last week or so. I know lots of people have missed hearing from us, but we're back on track now, and I'm sure we'll be able to do lots of programs from around the world.
Yeah, and as I said, thank you, Peter, for this. And we have a guest, and Nicholas, who will be speaking here in a minute, will be also a speaker at the upcoming Reset conference on September 16th in London at the Churchill Hyatt Hotel in London. That'll be a real interesting event with movers and shakers in the industry attending. And in case you haven't registered yet and you're in London on September 16th, this is the place to go. You can go to our website at World Tourism Network, WTN.travel, and click on events. And it's one out of two events, and both are in London. We partner with. One is, as I said, Reset on September 16th, and the other event we're looking forward partnering and also having our own session is at the World Travel Market in London, November 7 to 9. But Nicholas, he will be at Reset. He's a speaker, and he's going to give us some ideas what he'll be talking about and what he's up to. Thank you, Nicholas, and I understand you're joining us from Romania today.
Wow.
Yeah, that's right. I'm in Romania. I'm in Timișoara, which is in the west of the country. I'm actually attending a conference here. And I'll tell you, tourism here is booming. Some hotels are shut. Last time I was here, I stayed in a beautiful hotel, which is, thanks to COVID, no longer open. But the other hotels are full, and we've been having a wonderful time. We had a great trip out today up to the River Danube. Beautiful weather, great place to come. We were at a wine tasting last night. The Romanians, since communism, have reinstated a lot of their traditional wines. They're growing some classic wines. It's a great place to come. But I'm, as you said, Jürgen, I'm a professor at the University of Wales, Trinity St David, and we're very concerned there, like so many people are, about health of the planet, long-term state of the planet, and how to develop sustainable policies. So we've been looking at the traditional ancient idea of harmony. And the idea is that ideally the whole world exists in a state of harmony. This is a very important ancient classical idea. We find it in Chinese thought as well, many indigenous cultures. The whole world, ideally operates harmoniously. It's almost like, if you could hear it, you'd hear a beautiful, beautiful musical harmonies. But everything changes. We live in a world where one day is different to the next, and so disharmony develops. And so we're looking at two things. First of all, one is how to maintain this idea of harmony as opposed to disharmony. Also, I'm picking the idea of harmony because in those cultures which have this idea, they think that like everything in the world is interconnected, interrelated. Entangled is a modern scientific word. Everything is completely connected. This is modern science as well. And so the problem is, how do we translate this into policy ideas and avoid the silo thinking that so often affects our desire to solve the world's climate problems? There's news today about how the shift in the EU subsidies for wood pellets as a form of energy is now depleting the forests of Europe. So, what happened was European Union decided that we needed to cut down on CO2 emissions, stop burning oil, gas, and so on. And so they started promoting wood pellet burners, which are themselves far more efficient than old wood burners. But hey, they've started a huge wood pellet industry that's devastating some forests. So what we're trying to do is say, no, look, everybody, stop these short-term solutions. Stop saying, hey, we cut CO2 here, we cause a problem there, and try and look at things across the board: business, health, society, architecture, in a much more integrated way. And so obviously we can apply all these principles to travel and tourism as well.
Professor, I think it would be helpful to people if you kind of defined your definition of harmony, because I can think of maybe 10 different definitions, and it would be good to know what, define what you're speaking about so the public can understand that.
Yeah, okay. I mean, you're right. The fundamental idea, it's come down to us from the ancient world, is that everything in the world moves in some sort of unison, in some sort of pattern. Okay, I think everybody understands this intuitively. The wind blows, the trees move, the water flows, the air, the wind blows, and so on. Sun rises, everything. There's a pattern, right? Now, how we're trying to update this is to say, right, if there's a pattern that everything is moving together, it's all absolutely interconnected. So there's a great sort of metaphor that is used to describe this. So a butterfly flaps its wings.
That comes out of quantum physics, the theory.
It does, exactly, and chaos theory.
Right.
Butterfly flaps its wings on one side of the planet, there's a hurricane on another side. So anything can have a significant effect because everything is linked. So another word from quantum physics is entangled. Okay. So then what we're looking at is the way that first of all, if we're making policy decisions, we have to understand how these policy decisions might have a wider impact. So the example I gave was, the wood pellet industry. Another is that each of us as individuals can have a significant effect, just like the butterfly flapping its wings. So we might not think that we do, but actually, as individuals, we can take responsibility for what we're doing, and then collectively, if enough of us behave responsibly, we have an effect. So.
So maybe I ask you a question, or just where you're going, and that is, and I don't disagree with you at all, that we have to think through the consequences of our actions. The question is, what methodology do we use to be able to do those? For example, I'm going to assume the EU, in deciding to have wood pellets, thought it was doing a very smart thing. It wasn't that they did it to be mean or cruel or anti-trees. They tried to come up with a solution.
That's right.
If the butterfly's wings, according to the theories of quantum physics, can impact a hurricane on the other side of the world, how do we know what we're doing is doing for good and not for bad?
Well, I think that you model the solutions. Okay, you think if we're going to subsidize wood pellets, what's the likely outcome? How many wood pellets are going to be sold to have a significant effect on forests? How many trees do we have to cut down to produce the wood pellets? So it's not terribly complicated. You just model all the consequences, which is, of course, what climate scientists are doing all the time, is modeling different possibilities. We put this amount of CO2 into the atmosphere, we're likely to get sea level rise in a certain range. So it's to do with modeling. I mean, another classic example, which many friends of mine are suffering from in the UK, was when in the 1990s, there was a drive to promote diesel as a fuel instead of petrol, right? So again, reduce fossil fuel emissions. Now, I know lots of people who were really green, eco-activists, Green Party members, they bought diesel cars. Now, we find that diesel is very polluting. The air from the emissions from diesel cars can exacerbate heart disease, breathing problems, and so on, according to different studies. So in my own city now, and many other cities in the UK, clean air zones are being instituted, which means that diesel cars driving through the clean air zones have to pay a £9 charge every time they enter the zone. That's £18 if you enter the zone and then drive across town and have to re-enter it to get back. So the diesel car owners are up in arms, but diesel cars were promoted as the green solution because the emissions that diesel cars put out weren't modeled. There was just the one measure. How do we cut down on CO2 emissions? So it's a matter of actually modeling the consequences. With nuclear power, we know all the arguments for and against. There's a new nuclear power station being built in the east of England, Sizewell. Well, it's going to be put on a platform 7 feet above sea level with a seawall around it of 77 meters, 14 meters, and a storm surge which floods the power station is put down at a 1 in 10,000 year event. Now, how many 1 in 10,000 year events are we having at the moment? It's but that 1 in 10,000 years could come next year. So it's a matter of in that case, I think, rather than going for the old nuclear power option, of really scaling up renewables. So in the UK at the moment, it takes around 4 years to get planning permission for an offshore wind farm. That can be cut to 1 year. So it's a matter. So again, it's I think thinking in the round, thinking holistically, and
so we're thinking holistically. My friends who are ecologists who hate wind farms because they say, one, they use more fuel than natural gas, and two, they kill birds. And the killing of the birds, therefore, is hurting the environment more than the wind farms are helping. So if I'm using your theory, which I understand, again, an easy solution may create more complications than it may create goodness.
I know, Peter, ultimately, we've got a decision as to whether to do something or nothing. I mean, in California at the moment, all the old, I read all the old solar panels that were installed 25 years ago are now due to be replaced.
Right.
There's no proper plans to recycle them.
Right.
So, again,
and that's why I think your view is so important when you speak about harmony.
Yeah.
Because we have to think not only the short-term solution, but what is the total amount of harmony? And I think we bring that to tourism, that comes even a bigger issue. For example, should we allow people to fly in airplanes? Airplanes are tremendous pollutants. Maybe we need to shut down places like Hawaii, or only allow people to go to the United Kingdom by boat. How do we do that? What happens to London if we and what would be the economic consequences, the social consequences, and the political consequences if I now no more air flights to London or to Hawaii.
Yeah,
And
I
Jürgen,
know. I mean,
Hawaii-
ultimately, for me, okay, I'm personally a pragmatist and a compromiser. So it's ultimately about finding the best level of compromise,
yes,
having modeled the most number of sort of problems and potential solutions, which can, of course, lead to inaction. You never get to the point at which you've got a perfect solution.
right.
So there always has to be a moment at which, you know, the politicians come in or the advisor and say, right now we have to act and we do this. But, you know, I think the examples I've given were of instances where there was no serious modeling of the solution. I mean, you mentioned electric cars earlier. You know, I've got a problem with electric cars actually because of the rare earths needed for the batteries,
Exactly.
apart from the fact they need charging. And I don't think they're a solution. You see, I'm a public transport supporter, and I think you know, trams, trains, an obvious solution.
Agree with you
You know,
more.
you know,
I could not agree with you more.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see, on top of that, with the electric cars, no one knows what to do with the batteries. There's also a political price to be paid, not on the rare earth, but a domination by one country over the rest of the world, which is not a ecologically friendly country. I'll just leave it at that, without bringing into politics. I think we're going to see tremendous problems with the whole electric car push, and we haven't thought through the consequences of the butterfly flapping its wings. And
no,
you're
uh,
right. You're 100% right.
I think the electric car boom is just repeating the diesel car
Yes,
mistake.
exactly. It's
And
exactly.
it depends, I mean, it depends, of course, where you are. Here in Hawaii, I think we have the largest, I think so, at least one of the largest percentage of electric cars. So you find electric cars everywhere. They have free parking for electric cars. You can charge your car free almost everywhere. So it does become
So
quite,
where do you get the electricity to charge the cars?
I understand, but you don't pay for it. The state pays for it. So you just plug it in where
And where does the state get its money from? From taxes.
you're absolutely right. So it's a circle, and I think when it comes to harmony, the world is not harmonized to a one solution approach, right? There is different approaches in different countries, and some countries put a bigger emphasis on protection than others. And not only countries, if you look at in our own country in the United States, it's very different from region to region, from state to state. So I don't know how to harmonize all of this and to come to a global solution that everyone can live with and that is actually effective.
Well, and I think that's Professor Campion's problem is how does he, taking the theory of the butterfly, make it work on a global scale?
I mean, right at the moment, that's beginning to look like a more difficult task than even it was a few years ago, with the you know, a reversion to old geopolitical animosities. So we just have to hope that behind their rivalries, that you know, national geopolitics is now stirring up. There is still some level of communication that takes place because countries must see the way the climate's changing, and they actually have a shared interest in terms of self-preservation in continuing to cooperate over finding solutions to these.
So that brings us to tourism, which is a huge energy user, a huge water user. Most people at home will use one towel a week, you know, and dry it. When people go to a hotel, they use 3 or 4 a day. Most people do not change their sheets on their bed every day, but in the hotels, people do want them changed every day. We use vast amounts of energy to get planes from one way to the other. Maybe tourism is an industry that ought not to exist. You know, are we talking about the death of tourism?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I have colleagues who will say flat out, you know, tourism is not sustainable. I mean, I think that again,
A state like
I'm a
Hawaii,
contra-
give it up.
yeah,
In other words, the state of Hawaii should we say no longer can anybody fly there. You want to get to Hawaii, you row a boat. Good luck.
Hopefully
yeah.
it's not gonna get that bad. But
I mean, again, you know, I won't. I never have gone for the hair shirt solutions. I'm always a compromiser. You know, what can we do? How can we minimize problems? So, in terms of the number of towels that you use or changing sheets every day, for those specific examples, I think there is a culture change that could easily be affected because you know every people who go to stay in tourist hotels are aware of the problems. Their kids are being taught about these problems in schools. And if you're told, okay, your towels are going to be changed every few days, hang your towels up. When we're going to change your sheets once a week. I actually think those culture changes can be made. I don't think it's an all or nothing.
yeah, and
I think it's a matter of
a lot
persuading
of
people.
thing in hotels specifically. I fully agree. This and the towel question has been on for many years now. It was one of the first things. But then again, if you people when they go on vacation wanted to live better than they live at home, so they want to be spoiled. So when you go and stay in a hotel, you pay the same room price every night. Maybe a solution would be okay. The first night you pay X number of dollars, and the second and third night you pay a little bit less, but you're not going to get your beds made and you're not going to get fresh towels. I don't know. Many solutions to this.
And I speak to people who most people don't speak to, which are the people who work in the hotels, the maids, the cleaning people, and they really object to it because they say this is putting their jobs on the line. And so by not changing sheets or towels, they can't afford to feed their families.
Mm.
Right now, that is a perfect time because there's so many maids missing. I can tell
Yes,
you.
but what I'm saying is, that, you know, there's if you look at it in the general perspective, and again, I think if we use Professor Campion's theory of whenever you do one change, you impact other changes. So we really need to think through the totality of those changes and what happens if people can't afford to make a living, or in other words, you know, just like for example, you would object strongly if I said no planes to Hawaii. Period. That's it. We solve it. It puts Hawaii out of business for all intents and purposes.
Well, you cannot really answer one extreme with another, but it is an interesting question, and you will see how interesting the reset event will be on September 16th,
Yes.
where you also hear from Professor Campion and from many other experts in this field. And we're hopefully we can live stream this. We're working on some technical issues still with the Hyatt Hotel in London. Was actually a beautiful hotel. I stayed there myself many times when I was at the World
How
Travel.
often do they change the sheets?
They do change the sheet, but even more than this changing the sheet, they have a fantastic afternoon high tea. So if you ever stay at that hotel or in the area, try the high tea. It's one of my favorites. But before we give Professor Campion the last word as our guest today, again, if you wanted to attend the Reset conference in London, you can just simply go to WTN.travel, World Tourism Network, WTN.travel, and click on new events, and you will find it. And if you're not a member of the World Tourism Network, you should also join us. We have members in 128 countries now, and interesting groups of literally from all spectrum of the industry. Just also go to WTN.travel and join us.
And if you join, you get to argue and discuss with Jürgen and me, and what could be better. So that's an added benefit that we ought to really throw in.
Yeah, and besides Peter and myself, we have a lot more interesting people in the discussion many times, including our friend and co-chair, Dr. Taleb Rifai, who will also be speaking at the event, I understand, at Reset. He was a two-time Secretary General at UNWTO, and many more people. We have our friend, I think, Minister Edmund Bartlett from Jamaica. As far as I know, he will be speaking in London, and he's also part of our organization. So, Professor Campion, thank you so much for attending. This was an interesting opener to what will come in London on September 16th. and I hope you enjoy your time in Romania. We give you the last word.
The last word again, I think it's about doing what we can do. I think it's about compromise, about finding reasonable solutions. Peter's last comment, I want to affirm as well that ultimately we got communities, we got workers who are dependent on their work in the hotels. So these questions have to be looked at in the round.
Thank you.
And look, Jürgen, Peter, thank you for having me. It's been a great discussion.
Professor, it's been wonderful, and I think this discussion is going to make people do a lot of thinking, and that's really the job of an academic, is not to provide answers, but to provide deeper questions.
Questions, exactly.
And anyone who's
Thank
watching us now and has missed part of this discussion, just stay tuned. We're going to repeat it every 2 hours, so 12 times in the next 24 hours. And if you miss it at all, you want to watch any of our discussions we had, easiest is really go to our YouTube channel. It's linked from all our publications, from eTurbo News, from World, and also from World Tourism Network. Or of course, you can always go to livestream.travel, our video platform, and watch any of our interesting discussions we had in the last 3 years at your convenience. Again, aloha from Hawaii, and good morning.
Howdy from Texas.
And we talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you again,
Bye-bye.
Professor.
Thank you.